Hello, it's the Anfield Wrap main Monday show, supported by RedsBet and presented by me, Gareth Roberts, this week. A little bit different this week. Obviously, the Reds didn't play at the weekend's FA Cup. And they were sunning themselves in Marbella. Not much of a chat to get out of sunning themselves in Marbella. So what we've done is we asked Twitter and we asked Facebook, in particular the Anfield Wrap subscribers group, what they'd like us to talk about. And I'm just going to try and work through as many of the suggestions as we can, really, in the next hour or so. With me to do that, Jay McKenna, Rob Gutmann, Paul Cope and Mike Nevin. I'm just going to go with the first one on the list. In fact, no, I'm not. Before we start, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Lion Tavern on Moorfields, a popular pub in Liverpool, particularly pre-match. Lots of Reds head down there before they go to Anfield. Historic pub as well, nice pub, good ale, and Dave, the fella who currently runs it, is a big Red himself. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a situation brewing there, no pun intended, whereby the Lion could actually close down. It's currently owned by Heineken. Heineken aren't particularly sold on it as a pub in its current state. And there's a bit of a situation developing, as I say, whereby it could close, and that would be a great shame. So anyone who does drink there, does want that pub to continue to survive, an email or a letter to Heineken may well be advisable at this time. And if you want to support it as well, of course, just pop in and have a pint and have a chat with Dave as well. So we wanted to give that a shout before we got going. We are now going to get going, and the first question on the list I've got in front of me is from Gareth Kelly. This is on the Facebook subscribers group. He says he would love to hear a discussion on Jurgen Klopp. How's he done up to now? What does he need to do future-wise? Jay, go on. What do you think of Jurgen Klopp so far?
I think he's under pressure now. I think he's at that stage in his managerial cycle as such that people are looking to see, well, how does he kick us on? Can he make that step up? I think, obviously the Europa League final loss, League Cup final loss, people are looking now to say, well, can he be that person that wins us trophies? I think it's a big challenge if it isn't, so I think the club's under pressure as well. But I think for him now, we're saying, okay, how does he make that difference? And I think he is, he's trusting in himself in how he's signing players. He's put himself under a lot of pressure to not sign almost players for the sake of it in January. But I think he's doing well. I think the thing, the way I always say this to people is whatever you think of the current manager or whether they can do more is, who do you see as next? And I don't think Liverpool have many options as a step up or a sideways step, from a Jurgen Klopp. So I think, they're in the club and the ownership are invested in that as much. So, I think he's doing broadly well. I think he can appear stubborn at times, but, if you're the man who's being paid to make these decisions, I can sort of understand this. So I'm happy with it. The one thing I don't like about him is some of his touchline antics, funnily enough. But that's away from his football. I just think that it probably provides a distraction. It's probably something I think does to distract from things sometimes on the pitch. But no, I think he's largely doing a very, very, very good job.
All right, Rob?
I think he's great. When he came in, I thought we'd got a world-class talent. And I think that in managerial terms, I don't think there are many of them. I agree with what Jay says in a certain sense, in that I think all managers get judged on their numbers. And if you withdraw from the personality and you look at the results and you go this league position, that league position, cups, yeah, he should be judged the same way previous managers have. But I think if you look at the man himself, look at the way I think he conducts himself, the skills of his decision making, the way he builds a team, I think he's a genuine world-class talent, and it's not entirely within his control to win pots on delivery, to deliver the things we want to order. I would be far more tolerant with Jurgen Klopp than I would with another manager, I think, because I believe in his potential. Sometimes I think we need to remember, you can look at managers like players. If you brought in a star player, you brought in Messi, say peak Messi 3 years ago, if after 3 years of having Messi we hadn't won a trophy, you wouldn't go, is Messi really doing it for us? Shall we get rid? And I know it's not the same thing, but I think he's a world-class talent, and I think whatever doesn't happen or disappoints us in the next couple of years, or maybe it won't, and hopefully it won't, it isn't just a go-to blame the manager. I know it's almost our tradition, maybe football's tradition, that the buck stops with the top guy, but I think this is somebody worth persevering with. I think he's special. I think he's built a fantastic team, a team that's shaping to be a fantastic team that plays some of the best football I've seen a Liverpool team play since the golden age. I'll accept 2013-14 when it was a joy to watch, but his stuff has been a joy to watch. And I think he can take us where we'd love to go, but there's no guaranteeing that. It's really, really hard. There's a lot of big clubs in this world with more money than us and who also want those trophies.
Cope?
I think, I don't know. My instinct was to think, yeah, he's all right, but I think that's probably a bit harsh. I think he's good, bordering on very good. I completely take Rob's point. My general point, and I keep saying this repeatedly in recent times in articles and on podcasts, is throughout the club, basically we should have the best. That's what I think, and you have to judge everything in context. So when everyone was slating Mignolet, my big point over months and months now is, we'll look at every other keeper in world football and who's better that we can get. That's the point in whenever you're judging anybody. And I do actually think as a fit for Liverpool, I said at the time, I've never seen the fan base so united, I don't think, in my adult lifetime, that when we got him, everyone was made up, everyone wanted him. I remember saying back then, it'll be interesting to see how quickly some people start to turn, because they will, sooner or later. We've already seen a little bit of that. I think that it's a mad one, and it's funny, me and Mike sitting next to each other for this, because we've been in arguments together on social media against people for airing some points on this topic, and I wrote something on it months and months ago now about he gets away with a lot. I think he gets away with a lot because he's got a boss personality. He's dead funny, he's dead smiley. The touchline antics that Jay mentioned, I'm with Jay. I don't like it. And it's funny because I think it appeals to a certain section of our fan base, but I think it appeals to everybody else, and that helps him get away with murder. And that was sort of the point me and Mike were making a while ago. And it's funny because I sort of pointed it out, and someone on Twitter, in my defence, when we were getting sort of attacked, made a great point. And I was saying he doesn't get criticised in the way other managers get criticised. And it was just a comment, and it's based on his personality. And everyone else going, so what are you saying? You're saying you want everyone to get on his back? And someone said, commenting on the absence of a situation doesn't mean that you support that situation. Yeah. So like, if it's just by saying it's not raining, doesn't mean I want it to rain. But it's an interesting point to note, and it is because of his personality. It's as simple as that. I think if it wasn't for his personality, he'd be under a huge amount of pressure right now, because at the end of the day, he's been in charge for a fair amount of time and he hasn't won anything. I take Rob's point on the money, but again, I wrote something on that last week, and anyone wants to get stuck into that, they can, to cause murder. So,
Cope just cause a murder.
Yeah, I enjoy doing it. It's great. But that was an interesting point as well. One of the things that Rob said then, if we can't compete money wise, I think it's nonsense. I think it's absolutely nonsense, because we can buy whoever we want to buy within reason. And
Paul, you did talk about wages in that article, and that is, if you look at the wages league table, since when? Yeah, there's a direct correlation between who pays the best wages and the pots being handed out.
Of course, but it's too easy to do broad brush on that. And I mean, this is slightly off topic, but at the end of the day, Jurgen Klopp could have in January, and the club could have in January, said to Leipzig, how much does it cost to get Keita? Right, we'll just give you that. So all the arguments about everybody else's wages fall away, but they choose not to. Now, that's fine. Again, I said this in the piece. That's fine. That's what they want to do. I think, so going back to the actual question, I think he's very good. I think he could be better. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Mike?
I mean, I think everyone's made really good points, and, last person round, it's hard for me to say something different. I agree that he's a good manager, but just like everyone else in life, we can always be improving, and there's room for improvement with Jurgen Klopp. Sorry, I'm eating a locket. Just a couple of points. I mean, in terms of the January inactivity, he's put himself under a lot of pressure, because if one of the front three gets injured or tired or suspended or out of form, he hasn't really got anywhere to go. And if Liverpool, for example, were to face Real Madrid in the quarter-final second leg of the European Cup, and one of Firmino, Salah or Mane's not fit, then you've got a problem. And it's a quality drop-off problem. And it is inevitable. And that is purely because we chose to be utterly inactive in January. We banked the Coutinho money, and we didn't appear to do anything else other than also let Daniel Sturridge go. Now, I've no real issue with letting Sturridge go, because I've been saying for about 2 seasons I think he's crocked, and he's already injured at West Brom. But for Liverpool not to try and replace a body, provide another alternative up front, that was just sheer folly. in my opinion.
But Mike,
That's just my opinion.
It's quality. I think, but it's quality level, isn't it? Because you could, for 30 million, 40 million, you could buy someone who might not be better, especially with settling in better than Danny Ings. He might not be.
Well, I'd be hard pressed to spend 30 million and not have someone better than Danny Ings.
Well, we just don't know who's out there at 30 million. Rondon.
Well, we don't, and
He hasn't played for 2 years, Danny Ings.
I don't know.
This is a thing of Klopp, and that to some people listening to this will be a strength. They will say, I like the idea he's not going to spend his money. I think there's probably an argument either way on that.
I agree
but it's
with
undeniable that he's put himself under pressure.
I agree with
because
all
I
the
think there was every
statements,
chance you could get knocked out of the Champions League and not finish fourth, even if Coutinho stays and Salah was to get injured, in February, and you couldn't have replaced him. All of that could have happened, but we've left. But he's been somewhat public. He hasn't been so public. He's been somewhat public, and he's done on the other side of that is he's done what Paul said of talking about, Man City have all this money. And it's like, well, we didn't want to spend any money. Never mind how much money they spend. We didn't want to spend any.
We did spend Van Dijk.
Yeah, but that was a hangover from the summer, wasn't it? That wasn't like a let's spend it in January because we want to strengthen in January. It was we can get him now. And because he wants to wait for his man, and that's fine. That's a thing. But I think that puts him under pressure. He seemingly is happy to carry that, and I think that'll be an interesting thing how he does for the rest of the season.
I think the pressure point's right. A couple of other points that I'd made notes of to say something different is that in terms of where would we go next with Jay said in terms of a manager, if Klopp were to come under pressure, shall we say in 12 months' time, then Xabi Alonso has actually publicly said that his ambition is to manage Liverpool, and so too. Well, I'd say pretty certain Steven Gerrard would like to manage Liverpool, and people who then say to me, well, they've got no experience. Well, I'll cite Kenny Dalglish, I'll cite Pep Guardiola, and I'll cite Zinedine Zidane. Yeah. Okay, who all just pretty much went straight to playing and became fabulous managers. It's not a necessity. You don't need to go and earn your corn at Southend or something like Mark Lawrenson did at Oxford, and his reputation was ruined overnight because he couldn't do it at a lower level. It's a completely different game. So in terms of Liverpool FC will find a new manager, and they'll find a great new manager at some point. I don't think it should be in the short term, because I agree with Rob's point about it's harder than ever now to win trophies. I agree, absolutely, and that's why I was gutted when we got knocked out of the FA Cup, because that was a winnable trophy. It was far more winnable to us than the Champions League because of the sheer quality that you referenced, Rob.
Yeah. Although the irony is that I think if we end up going out of the Champions League, we could well go out to the sort of club who could have got us out of the FA Cup. But that's in as much as the quality in our league is the problem. There's 4 other clubs, 5 arguably, with Arsenal on 4.
And this is the sole reason. So whether it's Real Madrid that we face, or whether it's Manchester City, or whether it's Manchester United or Chelsea or Spurs, to have been strengthened by another quality player who could fill some of the slack that inevitably will be left when one of those players gets tired. There's still a lot of games to go. They've had a long season already. And who's to say that one of them doesn't get tired and suddenly loses their rag, or gets baited into something in the Champions League tie, gets a red card and can't play for 3 games? It could easily happen. And it may or may not happen, but you have to think, you have to have a contingency plan in place. Apparently we haven't. I think
there is a contingency. Look, there is. I'll tell you what. I'm not going to argue this for the sake of it, because I'm 100% behind the idea that we should have. I would love us to have brought in a strong body in January, and I'd have probably overpaid madly and faced the consequences and be damned on it. Yeah. Having said that, we don't know the exact ins and outs. For all we know, we saw, here was an interesting thing, we all cried about, and I was one of them, come on, let's just get Riyad friggin' Mahrez in. Let's get Riyad Mahrez in. 45 mil or something like that. Let's have him in. He'll do, right, until we get the good guy, Tommy Lamar, supposedly. Then you get to the end of the window and 70-odd million's not doing it for Riyad Mahrez to Man City. So you're starting to go, maybe they were getting the same sort of story. Lamar, talking of 100 million, and Liverpool aren't even sure about him now. So I don't think the bodies are necessarily there. I have to say, a more Machiavellian manager than Klopp might have gone, do you know what? I am under pressure if I get no one. I'll take almost any old tit for 40 million and go, no one can turn around.
Like a Jermaine Pennant.
Sorry?
Like a Jermaine Pennant.
Get a Jermaine Pennant. Get somebody, go and get Quincy Promise, say. Right? Quincy Promise will probably end up at Southampton if he's lucky. He missed out on a move there. But, we were linked with him a year, 6 months ago. Go get a Quincy Promise who comes in and you go, he's no better than Oxlade-Chamberlain or Lallana. or even Danny Ings, who aren't getting in the 11 at the moment. Or, I mean, and maybe even Ben Woodburn's got another gear like Raheem Sterling in. So I think Klopp thought, the only way I can solve this, meaningfully solve it, rather than just throw paper over the cracks so I take pressure off myself, is to spend 100 million or to spend 80 million and consummate wage and the commensurate wages. And he thought, but then that's going to decimate what I'd like to do in the summer. And for what? And there's the settling in phase. And I don't even want the lads that are available now. Because it isn't I mean, let's put it this way. How many players were Barcelona after to replace Neymar? About two. Two in world football. So much so that they ground us down on Coutinho. We're meant to replace that £140 million player with what? The drop-off is massive.
Well, look, I need to address this. I know this is off the Klopp direct topic, but it all filters into one. And I think my big thing on this is I think both Klopp and FSG are being really naive, because if we don't win the Champions League and we don't get in the top four, which is we're all getting carried away now, and it's lovely, and we should be, and we should enjoy it. We're still an outside chance to win the Champions League, and it's still touch and go to get in the top four. If neither of those two things happen,
we're 1-8 on to finish top four, by the way.
Well, that might be the case, but I agree. But Spurs and Chelsea go out the Champions League, and then they've just got a free run at the top four, haven't they? So I'm confident we will get in the top four. I'm confident we'll do well in the Champions League. But let's say that just doesn't happen. We've all seen how quickly it unravels at this football club. We've had Rafa Benitez won a European Cup, got to a European Cup final consistently in the latter stages. Within a year, his stock had gone, and there was different circumstances and all of that. Brendan Rodgers came closer than anybody else in my adult lifetime to winning the league in amazing fashion. 12 months later, he was being chased out the club by most of the fans. This can change quickly, and they've got to be very careful on that. I'm back on the point about...
Do you think having made a signing now, which if he makes the signing but still finishes fifth, if I
own the club and Jurgen Klopp says to me, I don't want anyone, I say to them, who do you want in the summer? You've already got a list of the lads you want in the summer. One of them's Keita. Let's say one of them's Pulisic. I go to him, right, you can defend to your dressing room how you operate, which is fine. And you can tell them, well, there's nothing I can do about what the owners do, and I'll go out and buy you this player. And then you can blame me, because I'm the owner. But I'm going to buy you Pulisic. And if he costs me 80 million quid, I don't care, because I've just got 100.
He's 19, by the way.
I don't care. We've already got Keita.
Let's not start trying to be rational about numbers, because we'll go
the number of people who say to me, you just used the line then, the number of people who say to me, no, but we wouldn't been able to, Neil even said this to me, we'd never been able to get Keita, they were just playing a game. Well, Barcelona got Coutinho off us. You said they ground us down. We're Liverpool. How is Barcelona grinding us down, and we're not grinding down everybody else?
It's a world record fee, that. I mean, it's unique.
Do you not think there's a number on everybody? So Pulisic, say he's 60 in the summer, and you give them 80 now. There's a number. There's a number.
But okay, but our problem as fans, we're in the habit of thinking there are 20 of these guys, and I don't think there are.
Doesn't need to be 20.
Yeah, okay. Well, you line them up, and I can knock them down. Well, I can imagine how they got knocked down.
But this is the point, innit? It's the ones that Klopp wants, and that's where Paul's question is key. And this comes back to something that I know I've seen Neil mention on social media about. He thinks, almost someone needs to manage Klopp within the club, and the club don't do that. Coming back to the Klopp point, and this is where I think it is vital to FSG. I think FSG's, the patience with FSG, never mind the FSG in-out stuff, the patience for them, I give them a 6 out of 10. If I was to give them a mark.
Yeah.
That slides when Klopp goes, because I get Mike's point of you can bring someone else in, a Gerrard and Alonso. A Gerrard and Alonso would give them a big honeymoon period, but I think their model, if they could, they wanted to stick with Hodgson. They didn't want to sack Hodgson. They brought in a club legend. They sacked a club legend. They brought in a young up-and-coming manager. They sacked a young up-and-coming manager. They brought in a world-class talent like Jurgen Klopp, and Jurgen Klopp couldn't make it happen. If none of them three managers can make it happen, no one makes this happen.
Yeah,
no one makes.
I agree,
and that's where I think this comes into the FSG. That if they're saying maybe we need to sign someone else, maybe the dynamic isn't what Klopp's doing. Maybe the dynamic's how they manage Klopp. Maybe the bit that's missing about all of this, and why we spent 20 minutes talking about it, is that someone from FSG should be based in Liverpool and should be talking about this all the time instead of Jurgen Klopp answering questions about it in press conferences, because that would be a quite novel idea, wouldn't it, that the club would deal with stuff like that. They should be over there explaining that. They should be giving interviews to the club.
Mike Gordon here, Jay?
Well, he's not here enough, is he? He doesn't come. He comes to a game every so often. They come less than I think he can.
When he does come, he doesn't speak.
And they don't. Yeah. And well, that's the point. They don't speak. And I said this about Klopp when he got his contract, but I think there's lots of ways. We could pick up a newspaper article this morning, right, and it could be Liverpool didn't spend 80 million on Pulisic because they went for it, but Dortmund said no. Now, that would be Paul Joyce. And every one of us would read that and go, that's come from Liverpool. That's bona fide. That's absolutely legit. Klopp said it in a behind closed doors chat, or someone from the senior levels of the club have said it. James Pearce gets a story like that. It's legit. Melissa Reddy gets it. It's legit. Liverpool could do all of those things. I'm not asking Mike Gordon to stand on the steps of St George's Hall and say, here's the email, lads, that are to sign Pulisic, but they said no. I just think Liverpool can talk about that. And they might have done all of these things. I take your point. They might have done all of these things. They might have knocked them down. But the Paul Copes of the world still get to say they did because no one's saying it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't expect Klopp, and this is where I think Klopp comes under pressure, because I don't expect Klopp to come out and say, that's not his job, because he's got a dressing room full of lads.
Absolutely.
He's got Oxlade-Chamberlain, who he wants to, be more consistent for us. And you're not going to go in and say, I'll try to sign Pulisic, because Oxlade-Chamberlain's going to think, lad, you just told me last week while we were in Marbella that I'd be, that I'm your number one, and I've just found out you tried to sign some fella who'd definitely take my place.
Definitely better than me. Yeah.
Mane might have been the same. Mane might have been thinking, well, if Pulisic comes in and does well, I've been a bit hit and miss, and I've still been getting the numbers, but the fans think I'm not that great. Maybe he'll try Pulisic, and he'll get a big reception off the fans, and all the players that think that's but there's no conversation, and I think the lack of information through whatever source.
If I can just go back to Paul's point about, if there's an owner there that ultimately says, look, I'm buying you this player. If I'd have been the owner, I'm not the owner, I'm just Mike, right? I'd have bought Mahrez, and I'd have bought him for 70 million. I tell you why, I think he's worth it. He's a Premier League winner. He's at his peak. And he would, whether he improves that first 11, he improves that first 12, that first 13.
Maybe he's hanging on for City, though.
Well, Liverpool need to be grander than Manchester City. They need to deliver a more compelling message. These players need to know about our passion and what this football club represents. And in my opinion,
to the man asked, though, Mike.
Sorry.
No to the man asked. You just want money, and City have got more of it.
So basically, yes, I take your point, but somewhat, it's called selling. Basically, it's called selling, not selling players.
But maybe Mahrez doesn't want to be sold too. Maybe he's just here to make as much money as he can and get off.
Well, maybe he is. But as Jay says, we don't know, do we? We just
we don't know. So we're just drawing dots all the time. But what I mean is, sometimes you don't have to draw the dots to continually knock the club down. Though, you know what I mean? Maybe Jay's just said, maybe they did have a go. So you just go, oh well, we could have got Mahrez. Well, maybe they asked. Well, maybe they asked, and it was a done deal that he wanted to go to City, and they went, oh, we'll walk away then.
I would have bought him. That's just my opinion, isn't it? Which is worth literally nothing.
Mike, you or me may have gone to 110 bloody million for Mahrez because we're like that, right?
Well, I wouldn't have gone 110, but I think the advertised fee that City knocked them back for was something like 92, actually.
Sure, okay.
So I'd have bought
92 plus a lifetime subscription to, I don't know, whatever for Mahrez.
Anfield Wrap?
To the Anfield Wrap and 500 grand a week. And me, one of us would have got Mahrez over the line, admittedly. And then Klopp would have turned around to the owners and go, well, I appreciate you getting him over the line. Who can I have in the summer that I really want? They went, oh, I don't know, lad. We've bought him now. We could try and fuck him off. And Klopp goes, but you can't treat play. I can't build a squad if you're going to buy me someone for 6 months.
That's where the ownership need comes in.
But that's where
they need.
It's complex.
They need to
Is the
say,
argument.
you can have him, and you can also have what you want.
That's where they need to stop saying the things Paul wrote about then. Stop talking about fucking Man City then. If you made a decision to not buy these players, that's fine. That is entirely legitimate. You're Jurgen Klopp. You've got enough stripes and you've got enough bloody credit in the bank to be able to say, nah, I'm not doing this, and people trust me to do this, and I'll live and die by that result. That's fine.
We've only answered one question here, boys. So let's move
for number two.
Question two, and I'll go to you, Jay, because I think
I've just looked across and seen this.
So this is there's loads on this actually. There's loads of different people asking different variations of it. But basically, whenever we put a thing out saying, ask us what you want to ask us, season tickets in some way always comes up, and season tickets has come up in lots of ways, and it seems there's a suspicion around this one, not from the lad who's asked this particular version of it. He said, it's Andy Smith, he says the proposed season ticket amnesty stroke photo ID idea and family friend nominations concept. He just wants us to talk about that. But someone else has also sent the same question, but literally said, is there something else behind this? Someone else has said, will I ever get a season ticket before I die? I'm on the waiting list and nothing seems to happen. So lots and lots of season ticket related questions, but let's start with this idea of there being the amnesty and the photo ID idea and the friend family nominations concept.
I'm not on this forum where this got brought up, much like I know Robbo's on one of the forums and he's not. And bizarrely, the club have this rule where you're not meant to cross-talk, but obviously SOS have got a couple of reps on there. and I got texts during their meeting about this, and was like frantically texting back saying, so in what context, what did he mean by this? Clearly the club are wanting to do something, and again I think some of this comes down to a why, for what reason, a communication thing, talk about it. I wonder whether some of it's just got, the club have almost got carried away and just said too much in a room, and they're not planning to do all of this. But, they're coming under pressure from two sides on this, I think. I'm assuming, I'm talking about this like I assume most people know what it's about, but, the club, I think, have fans who have tickets not in their name. And I'll be the first to say it, I haven't asked for this amnesty, but I am one of them people in a name where it's not there. And I think there's lots of reasons why they want to do that. They talk about security and safety. I think, let's be utterly honest and naked about it, they want data. Liverpool can't sell nothing to me if they're emailing me and it's under some fella's name and I'm never going to reply to a competition because then they'll know my season ticket's not in my name. So there's, they want this accurate and up-to-date information, but they're coming under pressure from other fans who are saying, well, I'm on a waiting list and I want a ticket and I want to go, and it's not fair that Jay's got a ticket passed on to him 10 years ago and he's been paying it forever since. The argument from people like me will probably be, well, I got offered it, I took it up, and Liverpool have happily took me £600 and then increasingly £700 a year. I think that buys me, my place. I'm there. I've got the ticket. I've been paying for it. I think, Liverpool do need to start afresh. I think the fear is, though, from people is where this goes and for what purpose. Yeah. I'd like to think the club aren't doing it to take tickets back in, but for a whole host of reasons. And I think this is something they don't understand about supporter engagement. And I did say this to them last summer when Tony was appointed. Tony Barrett's a really good appointment because I think he buys them a lot of credit. But Liverpool have no goodwill. If any of us are on the table, I'm sure people listening as well, if Liverpool wrote to you now and said, right, we'll give you a ticket for free, even you'd probably be thinking, a bit too late. But, never do not like this before. You'd find negatives in it. You'd be asking questions. You wouldn't trust them. You don't believe in their motives because of past decisions and current ownership decisions, but you don't believe in them. And I think Liverpool have got to buy goodwill. And I think on this, it's probably the right thing to do. But the way it's seemingly been presented so far, people are questioning its intentions. I think, if you're asking me how I think it should play out, and I think this might not be too far from the truth, I think they're going to come round to a lot of people and say, is your ticket not in your name? And I think they're just going to have to own that problem. They're going to say, right, it's not in your name. Whatever anyone else on the waiting list say, we've got to fix this. They'll put it in your name. The challenge they're going to get is when, you and Neil share the season ticket. It's in Neil's name. Whose name does that go in? How do you deal with shared season tickets? How do you deal with it if Paul's got a season ticket and Mike's been buying it off him from the last 3 years, and Paul probably knows he's never going to go again, but doesn't want to admit that to himself? And Liverpool write to Mike and say to Mike, well, do you want it? And Mike goes, yeah, I want it, I'll put it in my name. And then Paul turns now to Mike and goes, no, you're not, this is mine. So Paul promises Liverpool he'll go again. What did he do? Yeah. I think it actually, despite it being something we advocated in the ticket working group all that time ago, I think this might be a bigger challenge. And I think that might be why things like the photo ID stuff just never gets off the ground, because I think it'll be a huge mess. I think they're going to ask for ID to put your ticket in your right name, but the idea of tickets, photos on tickets and limits on how you pass them on and stuff like that, will just get them into an almighty mess. And one that they probably can avoid if they just have a proper conversation. Funnily enough, we've got a Spirit of Shankly Management Committee meeting tonight about this, where we're probably going to call a public meeting to try and get people's views, because it is split, and it is a difficult one, though, that they need to do some of this and you understand why they're doing it. But there will be people on the waiting list who are going to say, well, they're not the rules. The rules are you can't pass them on, and people have been. And what's going to be the rule moving forward? And we've got to try and get a sense of this, because I think the other danger for the club that they don't appreciate is if you're perceived to be doing this for the wrong reasons, and even if you do this badly, it could be the thing for some people, because it's not just financial. It could be the thing for some fans where they say, fuck this, I'm not going. I've had enough. You don't deserve me money. I'll watch it in the pub. I'll pick up tickets off my mates. I don't do one. You'll never trust the club again, but they'll also stop going. And then that thing they sell, because those fans who will decide to do that, will largely be a core group of fans that will put Liverpool before most things and do provide an atmosphere and provide that thing that Liverpool sell. And I think that, you know, it's sometimes said to me in here, but I think the danger with some of these, if it's not done well, is whoever decides to ultimately, you know, bite the bullet on this, if they think it's the right thing to do, even if fans don't, is they could be the person that killed the goose that laid the golden egg. And that's a real danger for them.
I think the thing that comes out of what Jay said and about the fact that so many people are bringing it up as a question here is that it's hard, Rob, and that there are lots of strands to it. I mean, you know, touting is obviously a reason why they'd want to know as well. You know, there's lots and lots of season tickets that are sold off for individual games for over the price that they should be. The club quite rightly are saying, well, why is that happening and why is the money going to, you know, individuals when it should be going to the club? There's the forum I sit on, one of the big questions there was, why are there so many empty seats? Phil Dutton's answer was, because loads of people don't come and they don't tell the club and they don't sell the ticket back. They just leave the spec empty. And then that then annoys people, obviously, because they see empty seats and say, well, why is it empty? And you're saying it was a sellout. And they're going, well, as far as we can see, there is a sellout. It's your season tickets who haven't turned up. And then you've got people saying, well, couldn't those seats go to local kids? And they're like, well, how would that work, though? Because, like, if you give it to a local kid at 3 o'clock, what if the fella or the woman turns up at 3:30? And she was just stuck in traffic. So, you know, like, what it always seems to me with these conversations is loads of it doesn't seem easy.
No, it's very, very hard. And Jay's right about the lack of goodwill, and I think the lack of goodwill, the perception towards a large body of the fan group having a lack of goodwill, actually is bigger than just FSG, and it's also. I think it goes back a long way. I think there's a long culture of distrust that was very much heightened under Hicks and Gillette, and they have to live. And they have to live with that.
Just to come in on that, sorry, because I think that's something I've said to some people, both publicly and, you know, just in chats with them at the club. And they come up with this, and I remember sitting in a room once about ticket pricing when we first started the ticket working group, and they said to us, well, you know, that's historical, that was Hicks and Gillette's fault. And I said to them, you can't disown that. You've got to own the past, because you can't have the good bits and not the bad. Because otherwise, we were sat in the Joe Fagan room in Chapel Street, I'd have said, otherwise take Joe Fagan's European Cup off the wall and the league titles, and I'll have them. If you're not having nothing pre-2010, that's ours. And I think you're right. And I don't think they fully understand that. And I think that's
history starts again.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and the complexities, and they must. If I were them, you think we can't do right for doing wrong. Everywhere we turn, we look at to move a ticket price up here, a ban down there. We look to do an amnesty there. Everywhere we turn, there's an issue with this lot. That's what they're thinking, right? Probably, yeah. I'd turn round to the guys in their boardroom and go, you know what sorts this like? This is all a problem of supply and demand. Just do them. Just make more. You know, if you only have to fix one, you did a great job on the main stand, but you're just spoiling the ship for a month worth of time in today's money terms. Because quite frankly, the transfer market has outstripped the cost of stadium builds in some respects. For the cost, I don't know, be 75 million to do Annie Road. And I know there's rumours afoot that announcement on that's pending. I don't know, maybe we'll talk about that in a second. Sort that out, and all this conversation ends. I tell you what, they could quantify the time and effort, money. Actually, the cheaper tickets they could put in the Annie Road, they'd probably give them space and headroom to actually have some premium tickets elsewhere in the ground, which would half pay for it. They'd have so much less fights on their hand, because you put those extra 10,000 that the Annie Road would put on the capacity, and all this falls away.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Just in terms of that goodwill thing, I'll give you two examples of why there's bad will towards the club. Let's call it the club. Let's not say FSG, but let's call it Liverpool Football Club. My lad was put on the waiting list when he was born in 1997, and 15 years later he got his season ticket, his first season ticket. He was 15 years of age, as I've just said. Full price season ticket. No such thing as a kid's ticket. No such thing as a concession. And I battled on a personal level for about 3 years. Wrote a piece for the Anfield Wrap, saying, you know, you need some kind of tiered pricing to encourage the new generation. Tickets access is a problem anyway. There's hardly any children inside Liverpool, but so it would cost them literally nothing to reduce the price. They have done now, and there's a £200 under 16 ticket, and Sam, who's now 20, is on a 17 to 21 ticket, which is half the price of mine. Having said that, his first 3 season tickets in his first 3 seasons, he paid full price, and that creates bad will. It creates. And do you know what? I'm less bothered about it than he is, because he was sick at the idea of having to do a paper round every Saturday morning to pay for his season ticket. Because I said, I can't afford to pay. I can't buy 2 season tickets. I haven't got enough money.
I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah, but he worked for 1 whole year to buy his season ticket, his first season ticket, right? And then did the same again and then again 3 times. So there's where there's bad will. Friend of mine who sits near me, I can't mention his name. He takes his lad on a season ticket that isn't in his own name. They're not in the family name, and because there is no amnesty, and he can't declare the fact that the lad that he takes is 11, I think. He's paying £725 for his Cop season ticket, and he simply can't reveal to the club that the younger lad is going on it, because that would reveal the fact that the season ticket isn't in his name, and he's genuinely concerned that he'll have it taken off him. So he's paying double. He's still paying double, and I've said to him, look, there's a kid's price there that he should be paying if he's coming every week. But you'd obviously have to get in touch with the club to reveal the fact that that season ticket is not held in your name. There's just 2 small examples of why that bad will exists, and I think they're both completely understandable.
Just to give them some credit, because I know people probably think I just want to hit them all over the head all the time. I reckon there's people, and I split the club up in 2 ways. I say FSG, there's Boston and there's Chapel Street,
sure,
and there's Liverpool's, management of the club this side. I think the staff in Chapel Street would entirely agree with you that that's wrong, and that lad should be paying £200,
and I agree,
and that he should be able to go into them. And I think some of them, that's why they want to do some of this. I think the challenge comes is then when all of this comes down to ultimately a spreadsheet decision of, well, if we do that for £200 and then there's X amount, and then we want to do some more £9 tickets or some more cheap tickets, well, hang on, there's a budgetary deficit to this.
Yes.
And I think the solution to that, and it fits with this, is buy goodwill. Liverpool get 2 ways to make us happy. Us be boss on the pitch, and we just spent 20 minutes talking about Jurgen Klopp, why that may not be possible, that no matter who you sign, we might not be boss on the pitch and win things, because it's a challenging market. Or make you think different to how you go the match. And I think lots of us, and this is what, as a thing on Klopp, this is what pisses me off about Klopp on the touchline. Turns around to the main stand and goes, come on, getting them going. I'm like, mate, there's an issue of who the club sell tickets to, but also they're paying 59 quid to sit behind you and watch this shit. Stop thinking it's them that needs to perform and tell the lads on the pitch to do it. Yeah. And I think you think differently if you go the match, if you're thinking, they only charge me 35 quid today.
Yeah.
You think that's good, that, innit? You can afford to take your kids. You can afford to bite the bullet if you can't go. And Robbo might say, well, I can't go. I'm going to give it to my nephew, and I'm going to give it to my lad to go with his mates. You can afford to make that financial decision, because it's no longer a 50 quid thing that you're passing on for nothing. You're giving it away to someone for free. But then you will instinctively be better. And yeah, there might be a budgetary element to that, but you'll get so much goodwill better. And it might be that if you lower ticket prices, maybe you can do some more of the extreme things you want to do on tickets. But there's got to be a trade-off, not just this take bit.
100%.
There's not much to add to that, but the only thing I would add is I think this all comes down to a few bits. And again, I wrote something on controlled aggression a few weeks ago, and how I just don't think we're aggressive enough. It comes into the transfer dealings, it comes into on the pitch sometimes, and it comes right throughout the club, and it comes from the very top. In any business, in any organisation, the culture comes right from the very top. And the worst companies I've ever come across blame the bottom up, but it's not. It comes from the top. And what we're talking about here, and what we all spend hours and hours talking about in our lives, and they must spend hours and hours, as Rob says, what's the cost to the club as a business of going over this over and over again? But what we're talking about is symptoms, because it's all about the supply and demand point that you made before. If they'd have come in, I've defended FSG for ages. I've people who want to abuse them. I'm like, no, they're good. In the grand scheme of things, going back to are they better owners? They're good. They did the main stand, and everyone I know who's been in the main stand's like, it's brilliant. If they'd have just done the Annie Road off the back of that and gone, we've done the Annie Road now as well, so now more people can come in the ground, and then off the back of that gone, and you know what? Now the Cop's not big enough, so we're going to make the Cop the biggest single-tier stand in Europe. And now we've got an 80,000-seater stadium. Anyone who wants to come to the match can come. You've got £9 tickets, you've got tiered pricing, but we're going to have to put £80 tickets in. And on the back of all that, front it. One of the problems with all of this, again, is no one senior at the club comes out and says, look, this is hard to sort, so we need time, we're going to do this, this and this. And
there's an inertia and a silence over Anfield Road, isn't there, for instance? Like, everyone wants to know what's going on. We see something on This Is Anfield the other week, which seems to be, some documents that someone somewhere's got hold of. But why not just say that? Even if it's just, some kind of holding statements on it. To say nothing seems weird.
But it's because... And this is the thing, you're only left to read between the lines.
Yes.
But they do the main stand, they try and put £77 tickets in, we have a walkout, then John Henry says, in America, well, we're going to have to see now because, they don't want to pay these prices. and then they don't do anything about the other stand, and you're like, right, well, that's all we need to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Without you saying
You've given us
anything
enough
else,
dots there, mate,
you've told us enough dots for us to join them, and I don't think it's unreasonable for us to join those dots and say, because, and this comes back to the whole investment thing. Man City, I had Man City fans having a pop at me after the back of that article a couple of weeks ago, because they were saying, no, mate, we comply with FFP, we're self-sustaining, because our owners, and it was a point I added into my article, their turnover used to be 100 million lower than ours when their owners took over. Now it's 100 million higher. How has that happened? Aggressively off the pitch, they have grown.
There's about 140 million worth of dodgy sponsorship in that.
Well, you can say that, but I've got a mate who's a City fan, and everyone talks about the Etihad sponsorship. And when you look at that sponsorship deal in the grand scheme of things now, it's not a very good deal. So at the time, it looks like a dodgy deal, but it was over 10 years or
but
something.
Also,
so
that comes back to the FSG thing of relying on FFP. I remember when FFP was introduced, we were at a fans event in Barcelona, Hard Life, and we were talking to the guy from UEFA who was introducing it. And all I remember sitting there thinking was, for every lawyer and expert you've paid, there's 10 they're going to pay themselves to do this. It's like HMRC and tax. HMRC staff sit inside and decide the rules and then leave and go and work for, PricewaterhouseCoopers or whoever, and, not to badmouth them, there's more tax avoiding companies available. They'll go out there and, and tell you how to get around it. And they're going to do that, and I just think that's the thing. If we've got to say, well, what do we want to be about? I think the stadium. Do we think if you got to 70 plus thousand at Anfield that we'd have half this problem?
No.
If you truly done it,
Man United don't fill every seat every game.
But also
I've been there, and Joey's sitting at the back of the stand going, "There's loads of empty seats here," because their ground's big enough. I know, Joe, I remember someone saying ages ago, that waiting list, whatever the number on the waiting list is now, if you phoned everyone today and said, give us 900 quid and you can have a season ticket, most of them wouldn't want one.
Well, I think loads of them did say no, because when I eventually got mine, like I put my name down a similar time to Mike's son, sort of mid-90s-ish. I got a letter somewhere and it says Roy Evans on it. And they eventually rang me up in 2011, but it was after the season had started. And it was my dad who spoke to them, and they were like, do you want this ticket? And we'd already played a couple of home games, and it was literally because they're working their way down a list. I heard, you want one? Well, no, I haven't got 800, 900 quid in my arse bin. Neither did I, by the way. Yeah. I just had to lend it off my dad. But
when they introduced the £5 fee to wait on the season ticket waiting list, if you remember, they also increased the number of season tickets from 26 to 27,000. This was pre-main stand, and they went down to about 2,000 on the list. And I think this is partly what I think Liverpool intentionally. I think the staff, given some people in Chapel Street credit, but maybe people who aren't based in Chapel Street, they know the supply and demand supports their argument, because they get to walk into rooms with us and say, well, everyone wants a ticket for Anfield, and the touts outside are charging £300. And it comes to a point, and I know I've had this said to us, well, if the touts are getting £300, that should be money shut into the club. No, they're normal seats. They should be normal price. You've sold them and had the money. You just want the rest now. And the problem of treating ticketing, and this comes to the idea and amnesty thing, this may be a shorter answer on some of it. What they're seemingly doing is trying to introduce controls for a very small section of the market, but deciding that we should all have to play by that same rule. Touting and the mechanism in which they sell and get their tickets, and touting and the prices it creates, shouldn't then be how the rest of the support is judged. Because if we all decide to try and tout our ticket for Man United, or Man City or whatever, if every single fan in the ground decided they weren't going to go and they were selling them on, I bet you the price you'd get for it would be less than what they sell at face value. Yeah. I bet you they would. Because 2,000-3,000 fans will buy tickets off a tout for a big game. But then for West Brom, they'll pay less. But Liverpool are happy to that. But you then can't then say, well, we want the Man United price to be what we do things, or everyone should have a photo on the ticket because touts get tickets. Stop touts getting tickets. Glastonbury's done it. Martin Fitzgerald, who, who's been on here a number of times, he's really good on this, Martin. He said maybe there's a thing to do this, of saying we're going to do it differently. We're going to be Liverpool. We're going to do our model and lead the way. And I think that maybe.
What would that be? What would that look like, Jay?
Lower ticket prices. Maybe introduce some of these things. I think you change your relationship with supporters.
Yeah,
out of Bayern Munich, have a very very commercially successful. Borussia Dortmund to an extent as well. Schalke are very commercially successful. They've got this fan culture that we all rave about. About cheaper tickets. They have a range of ticket prices, but they can get in, and there doesn't seem to be an issue. And yeah, every one of their fans is dressed what all of us would hate going to match like. wearing a shirt, having a scarf, they're full of Bayern Munich colours. Could they buy into it? I reckon we'd all go to the club shop and buy something more if Liverpool charged us a bit less. You'd probably give them the same money. You'd probably spend in the concourse in Anfield if your ticket price was a bit cheaper because you'd justify it.
Can I make a point about ticket prices? And I think most people would agree that they're too high. But just as an illustration of that fact, if you ever can't go to the match and you're trying to move your ticket on for no more than face value, which is absolutely what you should be doing, right? You feel absolutely rotten asking someone for 42 quid. Yeah. And I'll guarantee this conversation happens all the time. Someone will say, me or my mate or Joe Blogg's mate will say, "I'll just give us 30, lad. Just give us 30, right?" And that's because you feel like you're robbing someone.
I had this with Chris Maguire. I had it with Chris.
And you've already paid for it.
Yeah. I paid for it.
I couldn't go to Chelsea, and Chris said, "I'll give us a ticket." And I know Chris knows the prices inside out. It was my Cop season ticket. Yeah. And I averaged it out, and he went, "No, it's about 40 odd quid." I went, "No, that's a normal ticket." I said, "It's my season ticket." And I went, "Just give me 30 quid." And he went, "No, because it's probably closer to the 40 when you divide it." I went, "Just give me the 30 quid. Just shut up and give me 30 quid. Just
and the other thing is that the scheme whereby if you're not going and you want to go through the official channels of returning the ticket to the club for them to resell it, they agree to give you less back than you paid for it in the first place, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that got brought up at the forum.
It's bad business, that, in the sense it's good business for the club because they're making money out of it.
I think they're going to
change.
But
it's absolutely bad business in terms of goodwill.
Yeah, that's
and this is the nature and the crux of this conversation. How do you create goodwill? Stop doing things like that.
And I think some of this then, we're going to have a public meeting, as I say, and that'll be announced in the coming days if anyone's listening to this. But and I was going to write something about some of this, and maybe I'll write it around that meeting for this, because I think part of it for fans who are on the other side of the argument to where I think we naturally are on it is also because they just don't know, they just don't understand that, they don't see that other argument, and maybe the club should be leading the way and having that conversation and trying to explain to people, well, this is what we've got. And this is how we need a conversation about how we fix it.
And this is why Spirit of Shankly is so important as part of the fabric of the local supporting community. And it just doesn't just mean Liverpool. It can go as far as it wants. Is that someone needs to be making this communication to fans that don't understand those issues. And if they don't understand those issues because they're new fans to the club, it doesn't mean that we don't want them. We want new fans. We want to get bigger, don't we? But part of being a Liverpool fan is understanding what's going on at the club. So if there's a mechanism in place that can get that message across, communicate it properly, then that's to be celebrated. And that's why Spirit of Shankly are an absolute diamond as an unofficial.
I'll give you that $5 in a minute, mate.
Go ahead, lads. Yeah,
Rob.
Rob. It's all right, mate. Just give us three.
Another question.
Question 3. Question 3 from Jim Franson. The psychology of fans. He says a 5-0 win in Porto, and people say we can win the Champions League. We lose 1-0 to Swansea, and we're absolutely no good. Yeah. Is this the way it is? And what about changing more into belief and less doubt about this manager and this team? This obviously feeds into as well a really good read from Andrew Beasley over the weekend on This Is Anfield, and it's about that, but it's also backed up with statistics. It's about, he got lots of replies, didn't he, with people saying, well, actually we're better in big matches, and if we've got loads of matches against the smaller sides or the sides lower further down the league, we've got no chance. But that's not actually backed up in fact. And go where you want with this, Rob.
Well, I thought it was interesting because of the confirmation bias it provided me. Well, I'd looked into this as well, and actually both me and Gibbo did independently. We'd written pieces in the last 8 weeks or so on this, because it is every time. I mean, look, if you have a conversation now with somebody in a Liverpool pub tomorrow and go, we've got 11 games left, but we've only got 2 against the top sides. We've got 9 games left against the bottom 10, 12. It's looking good for us, isn't it? And we'll go, you know what? It'd be better if we were facing 9 games against the top 3. I wish they were all against City. You go, really, lad? Really? You'd rather face City than West Brom? Yeah. Well, you're wrong, because, people will remember Swansea, they'll remember West Brom, but erased from the memory is Huddersfield home and away, Bournemouth 4-0, West Ham 4-1, Stoke 3-0, Southampton. The statistics show that although we've got a good record, Andrew's article brilliantly says over 3 years, Liverpool against the top 6 are I think nearly the best of the sides. Maybe City have got a slightly better record. Liverpool have got a better than par points, 1.7 or 1.67 points per game against the top six. Well, it's better against the shite, quite frankly. It may not be to everyone's taste.
Just in context. It's just in context.
It's context. Everyone expects us to have a 100% record against the cannon fodder of the league, but actually, if you want the points, and that's all that matters, we could have a grumbly little finish to this season where you go, oh fucking hell, well we drew at home to Watford and we drew at home, we got to play Brighton. Yeah, but what about the ones we only beat Newcastle, West Ham and Everton 1-0 in scrappy. Yes, but you're more likely to pick up the points there.
Yeah, Big Six versus the bottom seven. Liverpool have took 25 points from 10 games, so obviously average of 2.5. Chelsea have got slightly higher, 2.7, and then City have got 2.78. But yeah, Spurs, United and Arsenal all worse than us are playing the current bottom seven. Also as well, in the same article, Andrew points out that we're currently on our sort of best run for 2 seasons consistent, if you like, since Benitez days. So again, like another pointer towards actually we're quite good. There's another one he's churning them out at the moment, to be fair to him. He's put another one out today about got wins of plus, where you scored more than 5 goals as well. I think Klopp's now got more than any other Liverpool manager, which is mad, but is also a fact. So, I mean, what do you think it is now? Do you think it ever changed? Do we need to win the league before this mindset ever change? Is it merely that it's just more amplified because we've got social media and you're seeing those conversations online all the time? Was there always miserable bastards supporting Liverpool? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the default as a supporter across the land, across the world, is you're not happy until they make you happy. So the key thing was Brendan Rodgers in 13-14. We didn't win the league, but we had we were like league champions until 1 game to go, right? So that's what it feels like to win the league. We might as well have won the league. Okay, so we were only unhappy on the last 2 days, right? The rest of the time, we were as happy as you get to be in a league title winning season. By the next season, any residue of goodwill from that experience, and winning the league isn't 1 day, it's 38 days, had gone. It had evaporated. Same as Mike pointed out earlier, Rafa nearly wins the league in 2009. We're not happy the next season because you're not winning. Fans are only happy when they are winning football matches. And when it's going wrong, they will go, see how it always used to go wrong. Because it always did used to go wrong. This is not a question for us, this is a question for psychologists about what wankers human beings are. Right? And I have to say, people go, you're a half, I get this thrown at me, being a half glass full wanker. You're always optimistic, Robert gets, well, yeah, shame on you if you're not. What's the fucking point of getting out of bed if you're not?
Leave us cynics alone, Rob.
Oh, come on, Jay, you're an optimistic
Cope,
guy.
I mean, the line is obviously like, and it frustrated me as well, seeing it, as soon as you lose to Swansea, you just see loads of people go, typical Liverpool. And typical of what? We've just been on a big unbeaten run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm with Rob on, like, the question shouldn't be football fans. It's society. Like, that you could apply the same thing to everything in society. Like, most people, I'm like Rob, I'm generally optimistic and upbeat, and you can you literally look at anything and you can look at it, take it negatively or positively. And most people, the reality is, take things negatively, and that'll never change. Something I don't, going back all full circle to the Klopp conversation, something I don't like about the Klopp when he first came actually was you all need to turn from doubters into believers. And I often think, me and Mike have had this chat recently, like, I often think, what would I do if I was the manager or if I was the owner of Liverpool Football Club? I like doing that because it's like, rather than just talk about things hypothetically, well, what would you do differently? And in my opening press conference, I would say, you don't need to do anything. I'm going to win the league, and then you'll have no choice but to believe in me. You'll have no choice but to believe that what we're doing is right. That's it. As Rob says, that's the only way you turn it round. You win stuff.
And then win it again.
And just
again.
Win. And this is, when you talk about Rodgers and Benitez, the problem with both of those seasons were, the next one, loads of stuff went wrong. It wasn't like there was no... And this is in defence of Klopp now. What he's trying to do with FSG, I suppose, to a certain extent, is build gradually so that when we have a successful season, it doesn't just fall off a cliff the next year because we buy a load of crap and we let lads go, and he's trying to make it sustainable, which I understand that, and I'm fully behind that. But I think on your point, I do genuinely think until we win the league, the point Rob says about that league season, yeah, it was right up until the last couple of weeks. It would have been the greatest league win of all time, but we didn't win the league. They didn't say to us at the end of the season, you've won the league. They didn't stop all those songs that we get all the time from all of our rivals who say you haven't won the league. And I can't remember, it might have been Rob who made the point a few weeks ago about as soon as, or was it John, about as soon as Everton win a trophy, all of a sudden they start singing the song we sing to them.
Yeah.
Because now it's us who haven't won a trophy for ages. Yeah. And that's the point. You've got to win stuff to make people believe. Otherwise, it's just all talk.
And for me as well, what's happened, because Liverpool have had a long time, or many, many barren years, is that the mentality of the fan base has changed. Right? And the mentality that I grew up in, and Rob grew up, it was like, my mantra is, fuck off, we're Liverpool. Right? And we had a swagger. We had a swagger. We looked different. We behaved different. We were unique. We sang songs that we wouldn't sing other songs of other clubs because we were completely different. What's happened over the years is that swagger has been eroded by years and years of lack of success, and now that swagger is being replaced by a fatalism, and it's that fatalism that ultimately, when you lose to Swansea, says, "Oh, typical Liverpool." Now, the old mentality would have been, "That's just a blip. Watch who's up next. They're gonna get absolutely thrashed." And the mentality of the club has changed, and that's why when me and Cope go on Twitter and say we should be doing things better, we should be showing more controlled aggression, people say, "Well, we can't do anything about it. It's fatalistic." And I'll tell you another thing as well. For as long as that mentality pervades the fan base and the club, we won't be winning anything.
But I think, in a way, Mike, and isn't there an irony in our varying positions? That's exactly what Klopp was getting at. I understand what you're saying, Kobe, but it's
his job to change it, not ours.
No. But he was talking about, but I think he was talking about with belief. He wanted a one-club mentality. He wants, like anybody going into an organisation with a project goes, can you all buy into this, please? Well, that's all he was saying.
Do you know how you create that? You start letting people in for 20 quid.
Yeah, well, maybe behind.
But just, I don't think it is just human, some of this stuff. I think you've got to appreciate where we're at. We are all desperate. So that's a thing to factor in. Because of our football, I think we are desperate to see Liverpool doing well. To be able to do that we're Liverpool thing, to be able to say to all the fans who sing them songs, fuck yous, but also to get to enjoy it. The stuff Rob loves to do, let's just go and enjoy it. But also, football in this thing, we are entirely irrational. Let's not try and rationalise what we do. We are entirely irrational. All of us sat around this table are grown up semi-sensible, I'm looking at Robbie, semi-sensible men who have done well for ourselves, or who have good jobs and different levels of experiences and family lives, and probably say, some of you say to kids, no, you're not doing that because it costs too much or whatever, and yet we all pay an incredible sum of money on balance to go and watch 22 millionaires kick a ball around for 90 minutes, and then when they say, now you're going to play Wednesday instead of Tuesday, we happily put that in front of everything else so that we can still go and do that. We place it. It's almost religious, like it's like a cult. We go to a church and we sing all these songs in honor of these people that can do no wrong, and even when they do wrong, we still find reasons why they actually done right. And then we sit here and sometimes say, I wonder why they can't just act normal. It's a bit mad, and because football is utterly nuts. We are all lunatics. And I think if we understand that, then we actually get to understand why we do things.
You're absolutely right. I've always said, I agree totally. We create this. It's the universe that we live in within football is lunacy. Yeah. But once we go there, it's like if we all go to some mad planet. Once we're there, we're dealing with it. We're applying our rational selves.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
But it is a cult.
It all makes sense, doesn't it? Then it all makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're there away from it, you think we've all gone mad here. One of my favourite quotes was from Michel Platini before he was discredited. The ball is round. Right, and that means anything can happen, and that's why you can afford to be irrational.
Ancelotti, Neil always says Ancelotti's quote: "Football's the most important thing that isn't very important." Which is very good. Anyway,
if you want to read Andrew's piece, it is on the This Is Anfield site, and if you want to just give him a follow anyway, he's bass tuned to Red on Twitter. That's BASS, that type of bass. Very good, and he's doing a great job right now. We've got time for one more, gents. Go ahead. We'll finish with it.
Doing this, putting the world to rights. Past this.
Is this question 4? Today we did 4 questions on the Anfield Wrap. Well done us. The last one is more of a 41. I've purposely picked a 41 because some of this has been quite deep. Ben Quain on Twitter, he says, Jay, the Liverpool midfield has been both lauded and slated this season from one week to the next. with the arrival of Virgil van Dijk in January and Keita in the summer, what might the midfield look like in 18-19, and how will Klopp want it to function?
Oh, fucking hell, what a question.
He's right about the midfield being slated one week and loaded the next, though, isn't he?
He is, yeah. It's up and down, and players who play well one week, and partly because of the players. They play, you know, Emre Can plays brilliant against City, and then the next week you're like, lads, you look like you can't play football. You look like you've just been put on this pitch. It's like Space Jam, you know, where they take where the aliens take all the abilities. It's like that's happened to him after City, which is bizarre because you see they've got this talent. I think the Van Dijk, and I've noticed this in how he plays, I think Van Dijk does change it, because I think you watch him play, he's pointing at players where to be. He seems to get really annoyed when Can or Henderson drop in between the centre-halves to pick the ball up, as if to say, no lad, I can do this. And then when he's got the ball and he's looking for a pass, when he's receiving the pass, he's always a few yards ahead of Matip. He's like, no, and when he's got it and Matip stood next to him, he's like, no, don't stand sideways to me. Move into that space. Play 3 or 4 yards up the pitch. Let me play it forward into space. So I think he's going to change our midfield play and how we expect him to use the ball, because he's shown, you know, some of them passes away from home against Porto, shown he can play the ball. We don't need the player to do that. And I think that maybe means you get Keita to do his job. He's a first teamer. Keita, there's no question of, you know, I think he gets rests. I don't like Salah. I don't think he gets, you know, rotated. You don't spend that amount of money to do that to a player. You know, he's going to be in there. I think, it's Keita and 2 others, and I think you're just going to expect almost a bit like under Rodgers and at times under Liverpool, under Klopp. I think it's almost going to be, 4 or 5 men to defend at any one time, and 5 or 6 to attack at any one time. Just give them utter freedom to go and do this and go and attack. I don't know what those names will be, because I think Klopp's got a hell of a question to answer now about who he doesn't play. Because, Wijnaldum is one of the players I'd imagine he may well rotate, Chamberlain or others, but, you're going to expect to see something of a fluidity in that midfield. The front 3 pick themselves. Keita's one, there's only 2. And, we're talking about other players, we're talking about Pulisic or someone here, so you're saying, okay, how does he do this? I think he needs to sign a replacement for Coutinho, who we'd already moved into midfield. So there's 2 positions gone. I think it could be fascinating to see. I think we could have a very, very exciting team. It's whether people will feel we're defensively strong enough.
Rob?
I think in his dreams, Klopp's dream scenario was going to be, if they could have persuaded Coutinho to stay, to have, and let's work on the 4-3-3 formation, Keita and Coutinho ahead of a more defensive midfielder. And I think that would have been, if Can had stayed, he might have said, I'll work with Can to be the pivot behind those 2. Henderson, I think he rates him on and off the pitch, but I think he knows in his heart of hearts that there's a fragility to Henderson, and maybe he can't hit a level where I think he's hoping his top midfielders will get to, the likes of Keita, Coutinho when he was there. I think he'd like to sign a top quality number 6. Maybe it's Ndidi, who we've been linked with. He thinks a young player who can grow into that role. I think Lallana, has gone from being an absolute mainstay of any Liverpool middle 3 you talk about to being now a squad player because of the injuries. So if you ask me what it looks like sort of by this stage next season, in Klopp's ideal world, I think JJ's right, it's Keita and 2 others, because I think of the lads who are here at the moment, Can probably won't be here, and the others, whilst Klopp thinks they're very good, I think he thinks there are better out there because they're not at the level of our front 3. I think he'd love to have a middle 3 who are at the level of the front 3, and only Keita has the potential out of our current crop to be there, I think.
Cope, anything to add to those 2 views?
Yeah, I probably the only thing I'd add fundamentally is I think we should all probably get used to the idea that midfield isn't what we think it is. I think players who play in midfield now aren't what they used to be. Every argument, me and Neil have been talking about this recently, every argument I've had with anyone recently about Henderson and Can, ultimately, I always say to people, what you're saying you want is Graham Souness, and you can't have Graham Souness. So tell me who you want who's better than them, who isn't Graham Souness, because he's not available.
He's working for Sky and he's about 60.
And he's 60, do you know what I mean? And he might still be all right, but he's not going to be able to run around enough. And I think Guardiola has probably changed the face of footy in the fact that he's on record of saying he'd love to have 11 midfielders on the pitch, and that's what it's all about now. And I think it's harder and harder to play as a conventional midfielder, and I agree with what Jay's saying. I think it turns into, and that's the Van Dijk signing is so important for that, and a good sort of sweeper keeper is so important for that, because it turns into, well, we'll just have all these boss lads attacking you, and these 3 lads will just try and stop you defending. But all our attacking lads are dead fast as well, so they can get back in. And so it turns into then 6 attackers on the pitch. And I disagree with Rob slightly about the number 6 thing, because I think he loves Henderson and he loves Chan. And if you can keep them both, there are 6s going forward. And it was interesting, someone told me that, I didn't hear him say this himself, but Gerrard said something about Henderson saying, I know how good he is because I played with him. So you can say what you want, but he's boss. And I think Henderson got the same issues Lallana's got with injuries, but if he can stay fit, I think the midfield will be something like, the Henderson, Keita and one other who is an attacker, basically. So it'll just be, because look what's happening lately just with these 3 lads up front. And I think Klopp's thing is that with the heavy metal football and stuff, see if you can deal with them. And by all accounts, I've not seen much of him, but by all accounts, Keita is something to be very excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much echo most of what the lad said. Just as far as the individuals are concerned, and I think there will be changes. I rate Henderson. I really like Henderson. I think he's a good captain as well. He's demonstrative. He's good around the club. He does lots of stuff that's unseen as well. It's real captaincy stuff. But he's had a terrible injury, and I'm not sure that he's ever going to be quite that same player again. So there's the question mark over him. I really hope he can get over that. Chan's going. That's why you're seeing wild inconsistencies. It's great to play against Man City. Everyone's watching. I don't know who's watching against Swansea, but he just didn't seem bothered. So Wijnaldum has great games against big sides at Anfield. Otherwise, you don't see a lot of him. Lallana is becoming increasingly injury prone and is approaching 30. So there's question marks against all of them. And ultimately, what you're describing in terms of these inconsistencies and us whacking teams 5-0 and 6-0 and then losing at Swansea, it's because the definition of a great player is someone who delivers 8 times in 10, 9 times in 10, 10 times in 10. Even Messi has a bad game every now and then. But these lads here that we're talking about, for the reasons I've just stated, are all 5s and 6s because of injury, because of inability to impress themselves on games when we're interested, but some of the players aren't. And just the whole notion that surrounds football of frailty, confidence, all of those things, and I think they're all individually lacking in some area. So I think, to answer the question there, I think the midfield might look vastly different.
Okay.
Depending on if we buy anyone, of course.
Yeah. All right, well, that's been an Anfield Wrap with a difference. The Monday show supported by RedsBet, RedsBet.com, if you want to check them out. If you want more of this type of thing as well, we had absolutely loads of questions there, but we'd be doing a 24-hour podcast if we got through all of them. But there is, of course, more on Tour Player if you don't subscribe already. The AnfieldWrap.com/subscribe. Also, as well, we are doing videos every weekday. They're on Facebook and YouTube. Just look up the Anfield Wrap, you'll find them there. Again, more chat around footy. There's always something to talk about with the Reds, and that's why the Anfield Wrap is what it is. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everyone who took part today. That has been the Anfield Wrap.